What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the North Leeds Jitz podcast, episode 142. And this one I think is going to be a bit more for parents, but might be interesting for the adults team as well. We've got a lot of adults coaches who will be interested in what we're going to do. And it's always nice, I think, for the adults to know what the future generation of the people they're going to be training with will be doing, what they'll be going through. It might inspire a lot of adults to try and train a bit harder, actually.
Yeah, the kids are going to catch you up at some point, man.
Yeah, so we're talking about a big change to the kids program, which I've been really excited about for the last few months. It kind of just came off of a random little team meeting. So we have team meetings every Monday just to discuss what's going on in the academy. And just a quick note about maybe changing the age groups. And it's spiraled into doing this big overhaul of the timetable that we're going to go through today, which will be getting implemented over the next few months. And for me, I'm really excited because I can't imagine, with the facilities that we have, which are great, offering a better kids provision for so many age ranges without going into like doing early morning classes or something like that. Like, you know how swimmers, like kids,
4 o'clock.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember there was a kid, Joe. I can't remember his surname, but there was a kid called Joe who was like a competitive swimmer at high school, and he was like, I was up at 4 a.m. to go swimming. I was like, what? I thought I was tough getting up at 6 to go for a run. So for definitely, after school provisioning, like, it is mega. Like, I think it really reflects how comprehensive our adults timetable currently is, whereas the kids timetables lagged behind for a little while, and behind the scenes for maybe like 6 months now, we've been really developing our coaches, which of course the parents will have seen. But you've seen people like Coach Alex and Coach Dan and Sophie and a few others going from their assistant role, stepping up into that lead role. And they've all had amazing feedback. I think a lot of the parents have been really happy with it, and a lot of the kids have really attached to some of those coaches, which is really nice. A bit harsh for me, because now I'm not the favourite a lot of the time.
It's hard when I had to step away.
But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this and just talk about some big changes. What I'm going to talk about first, and if you look on screen, I'll put a graphic up of the timetable so you can follow along. You might not be able to see it very well, but we'll talk through it. There's some changes in the age ranges. So this goes alongside actually what the GB proper age ranges are, which I don't know. I don't know if a GB school actually follows this to the letter. It's almost always joint in some way to have less classes. And it follows because not many people will know this, but Master Carlos Gracie Jr., who's got the picture on that side of the mat area, the right as you're going into the mat, also was the creator of the IBJJF, which is the biggest official body in jiu-jitsu, especially in the gi. Their age ranges match the GB ones, which obviously makes sense when him creating Gracie Barra, right? So we've brought that alongside to match, and there's a few particularly important reasons for it. One, because it's actually just better for the kids to be in smaller age groups, so they're with people of similar size and emotional and normal development as a kid. Mm-hmm. But two, it also mirrors how they will go to compete. So recently we had a kid who was in the LC2 program, but they aged up, and they went, and their parent was asking me to move them up because they were going to fight in the older division.
10 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah, but they were going to be training with the 8 to 10-year-olds, 8 to 11 years old, as the timetable currently stands. So that was tough. So we had to move them up early, which didn't feel particularly right, because now they're 10, but they have to fight with 15-year-olds. So it's like it doesn't always just match one-to-one. So that's one of the reasons we've moved these age groups around.
One of the big reasons I remember sitting in that meeting you talked about was because we pull a lot of data. We're not just throwing classes out willy-nilly. Like we genuinely care about offering a world-class service, and you'll hear that term a lot in GBRL, world-class, because it's part of our mission statement that we hold ourselves to that standard, that we want to deliver a world-class offering on your doorstep, right? And what we noticed with Wade does this for us out in Bangkok, actually. We noticed with the data that one of the biggest jump-off points for kids was 7-year-olds. So people in LC1, children in LC1 who've been in the program for 2 years, from maybe 5, maybe even longer, like 3 years have been in Tiny Champs. the developmental shift between the 6 and 7-year-old is substantial. We see it on the mat all the time. And what we hear is 7-year-olds saying to us, I don't want to do games anymore. I want to do jiu-jitsu. I want to spar. Which is why T brought in that kind of extra bit of live training for our classes. But shifting the age groups into the alignment that T's going to talk about in a moment it will be critical in keeping those kids in the program, because they will progress aged 7 to LC2 rather than...
Yeah, it was really surprising for me, actually. Obviously, I'm not a parent, so when you say, a 6 and a 7-year-old, I'm thinking that's the same thing, right? But the amount of kids that do come up to me and parents that come up to me as well and say, could little Jimmy move up because he really likes the sparring stuff, but the rest of the class he's kind of getting he doesn't enjoy it as much. And that was really surprising to me. And if it was just a one-off, I'd be like, that's just a kid. But there was so many of it where I was like, no, this is obviously a thing where at a certain point they get physical enough and they understand it enough where they are like, this is cool, let's do more of this. Yeah. So I'm excited for those guys. I'll go into right from the start. So Thai champions, age-wise, stays the same, 3 and 4 years old, which I think is important because that 3 and 4 year old again is a very different thing from a 6-year-old. So that class will remain the same in terms of structure. It's a 30-minute class, super games orientated. It's not there to necessarily teach them great jiu-jitsu skill. It's there to get them used to being in a class environment, used to kind of following the instructions, get them used to kind of moving their bodies in particular ways, listening, all the kind of values that we talked about. They get like the introduction to that, the foundations. And that'll continue as normal, but there are some more stuff to talk about Thai champions a bit later on.
Yeah, so like as a parent, it's critical, and you will know this as parents, listen to this, that your child starts school age 5, like positively. And we've all seen these kids who just do not go to school happy for a long time, many of whom haven't been socialised. They've not been put in environments like this. And so it's a huge shock, isn't it? They're going to, you've been with your mum for the last 4 years, now every day. Now you're in a classroom full of 30 strangers. Like, what? So just happened. Yeah. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity here for our 3 and 4 year olds to learn all those values. And that's why we have that value-based curriculum. So cooperation, we know that, children only learn to share between ages 2 and 4. And if they haven't learned to share by age 4, they're probably never going to learn to share. So it's a critical age, isn't it? And I think the way we run it, I don't think it can be any better.
So when your child then turns 5, or if you've got a 5 or 6 year old, they'll go into the LC1 program, which is currently 5 to 7. And so it just knocks an age off of that. That's going to be really good because it'll stay somewhat similar as it is now in terms of class structure, though there will be LC1 advanced classes, which we'll get on to talking about in a bit. Maybe I'll just it will be very similar to now, but maybe there'll be 1 or 2 less 1-minute rounds and a couple more games to play because, with the younger skew average to that age group, they will be a bit more interested in playing some flipping turtles and some other games.
These are 5 and 6 year olds, right?
5 and 6 year olds.
Yeah.
So they'll still definitely get to do some sparring, and there is an advanced class where it will be more jiu-jitsu focused and there's live training. We're going to get onto that. But because we're knocking those 7-year-olds off, as we mentioned, who are the ones who are pushing for jiu-jitsu sparring specific training, they're going to move up into LC2, which will be 7 to 9 year olds, which again takes a bit off a year off of there. So now it's getting to where we have 3 years, which is again like super small. If you look at, please go look at other jiu-jitsu academies, and if they publish a timetable, which is still not a given. Some of them still like inquire and will show you the timetable.
Most don't.
Yeah, you'll look at and it'll just say kids class, and what they mean is there is 5 to 13 year olds in one class, which is tough to run.
Unsafe.
Unsafe, yeah. So again, having just 3 years in one class, I think is mega. Then you go into juniors, which will be the 10 to 12 year olds. So again, small group in terms of
this
years.
This is a big change though, isn't it? Because at the moment we have junior and teens.
Yeah, so that's a good distinction to make. Right now we have juniors and teens as one class. Now it's going to separate. It will be juniors full stop. And then there is a teens class as well, which is a separate class.
So 10 to 12-year-old juniors,
and then
on your 13th birthday, you can move to teens.
Exactly.
To your 15?
To your 15, and then 16, you move into the adults program, which we've had a few kids move in recently, like Joe Dawson, Rufus. We had the twins, Matt and Toby, before they left to do more stuff in their A-levels. And we have a few kids moving up soon. Kobe Ben Meyer will be moving up in a couple of weeks. It's his birthday on the 17th of April, I think.
All right.
Maybe the 17th. I can't
Nice.
remember. Yeah.
That's great.
That's Veronica's birthday now, I think about it. Maybe it's the same. All right, so on the timetable, you'll also see that there is just advanced classes and live training, and there's KCT, which is the kids competition team class. Let's just run through it on a day by day. So it's split off between Mat 1 and Mat 2. Mat 1 being the main big area room, Mat 2 being the back room, the smaller room. Now, just for a heads up for people as well, we already have a screen next to me in the office here, and there's going to be 2 screens up in the recovery room, and that will have a full normal live feed with some crazy wiring set up soon, this week in fact, where you'll be able to see both the main room, Mat 1, and the back room, Mat 2. So you'll be able to have eyes on your kids, whether in room 1 or room 2.
Yeah,
cool.
so obviously the children training just in the back room, you wouldn't necessarily be able to see them. It flicks between the 2 feeds at the moment. Some feedback we've had is that's a bit annoying because every 10 to 15 seconds it switches and they're just about to do something and they've gone again. So that's going to solve that problem. We do encourage parents to come and sit in this area of the academy and watch from a distance.
Yeah.
All right, that's really important for our kids to be able to feel like they can just be free and be themselves.
As usual, I'd encourage, just on that point, is if you're going to sit anywhere, try and avoid the doorways, because that creates like a bit of a bottleneck and less people can get through. It's a bit unsafer. So either find yourself a seat on the bench or on the window or in the room. Try avoid just kind of head through the doorway, which I know it's frustrating. You want to get eyes on, but the best way is to window, screen or benches.
Or come early and get a seat outside.
Yeah, for sure. So Monday, Mat 1, LC1 class. Mat 2, LC1 advanced class. Now, before I get loads of messages being like, what's the criteria for advanced class? I haven't decided yet. So that'll go to committee at some point. Now, when we phase this in, it might not necessarily start with the advanced class straight away. That might be closer to like the August time, which we'll get onto how we're phasing this in a little bit. But that might come in a month or so later.
Do you think, though, just because there will be those questions now, like, well, what is the advanced class? And we can't commit to it yet because we need to absolutely nail the detail. But and on that, this isn't perfect, but we wanted to share it early. Yeah. We wanted you guys to hear about it before, it's a fait accompli. Like, we wanted to know. Probably, I'd suggest it could be around belt levels. Is that about right? It's not like Jimmy's amazing. He's been here 2 minutes. He's in the advanced class.
Yeah.
It's probably grey belts and above, would it be?
I think so. I think it might change as well because a LC1 student has less opportunity to get into the higher ranks, of course, because they just by the nature they could have only trained. If you started when you were 3, then by the time you're in LC1 you've been training 2 years. But if you just got into LC1 at 5, then it might be 2 years before you're already moving up. So it might be a little slightly lower threshold for the LC1 students, and then it might go up as you go into LC2 and so on. And then you'll see that 45-minute class is actually broken down between 30 minutes of LC1 Advanced and then 15 minutes of live training. So we'll structure the class in a way where you can get some good new techniques, and then they'll also have the ability to do some specific training and live training in that class, which will be really cool because right now the LC1 students don't have an ability to live train. They do the 1 minute rounds, which again from all the feedback we've had from parents is like, do more of that. They love that. They're gonna have the opportunity to get stuck in for some live training, which would be great for the development.
So you used to, for those who don't know, you used to work at Gracie Bar, Bondi Beach in Sydney, right? Is it Ricky Packer now there? Is it Ricky?
That's yeah. He runs the kids team, and there's Pedro Donales who owns it. Yeah.
So Ricky did a really good job, didn't he? Creating an advanced program for kids. So I mean, well, how are you going to do that? Are you going to create a new curriculum basically? For kids?
There's going to be basically a curriculum. I think we'll actually structure it almost a bit differently in. So the curriculums are 16 weeks. We may do an 8-week curriculum, so they have a bit more time in. So if it's guard passing, there might be 2 weeks of guard passing.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Just because they get a bit more repetition before we move on.
So the techniques will be different. They'll be more advanced, more challenging.
Yeah.
And that's great, isn't it? Because it gives progression within that one program. So 5 to 6 year olds, your kid's been here for a couple of years. They get to whatever threshold meets the advanced. They can move to advanced and start to experience that next level jiu-jitsu, which is the perfect transition then into LC2. So it's a wonderful structure really for our kids to really grow and thrive in.
Of course, and LC2 then runs the same. It's a 45-minute class as per usual, but you do have LC2 Advanced, which is again will be a 30-minute of advanced technique and then a 15-minute option to live train. One of the problems like I had when I was designing this timetable was we have so much things that we want to get in. So you've got 5 classes between age groups. You've then got 5 more because you want them, 4 more because you want live training to happen. But then you've also got another 4 more because you want advanced classes to happen, which becomes very tight on the mat. So we'll get onto this in a little bit, but there are concessions that we needed to make. So right now we do LC2 45-minute class, and then on weekdays there's a 15-minute live training straight afterwards. So one of the concessions that you have to make to fit all the age groups in with advanced classes and the ability to live train is that you're going to do a shorter advanced class. It's a bit, maybe we skip out on things like the warm-up straight away, so you save 7 minutes there and things like that to get your technique in, and then you go straight into your live training. So there are like little concessions that have to be made to make it all fit nicely. But for me, I think this is the best expression of how we could have slotted it all in.
Yeah, what you'll find as well is the kids who are in the advanced program have been in jiu-jitsu for a while. So they're just a little bit sharper, pick things up a little bit quicker, they get the etiquette, they're engaged. And a lot of those kids are competitors, right? So they're laser focused on wanting to get better.
Which saves a lot of time.
It saves loads of time. Yeah. If you're a brand new student, of course, you're figuring it out, you're running around the mat, jumping off the walls, going crazy. Like that's normal. But once you get laser focused, the advanced class is the perfect spot.
Absolutely. I think, you can, with a couple of tweaks, you can teach advanced kids 2 techniques, see them pick it up and get it right, and then go straight into live training. They almost learn more when you're doing specific training and live training, and they really feel those positions rather than just kind of continue to drill it anyway. Right, so then again, juniors. So this changes because right now, 5:30 on a Monday, a class finishes. You hit 15 minutes of live training afterwards, and that's it for kids in the night. So now, because that advanced class runs with 15 minutes of live training after that, just a quick question I think people have is, does that mean if my kid's not in the advanced class, do they never get to do live training? No, that's not the case. They can still do sparring, and we'll implement it into a normal class. So they'll still do their LC2 specific training. They might do a round or 2, but it might not be as comprehensive as hitting 15 minutes, so like 3 or 4 hard back-to-back rounds. It might be more like there's one sparring round and some specific training at the end of their class. So the big change now is that from 5:30, the juniors class will start alongside the juniors advanced class and live training, which then runs to 6:15, which does impact our adult classes, right? So all of our adult classes will get pushed back 15 minutes, which I don't think it really hinders anyone having to come in 15 minutes later.
It gives them a chance to get through the traffic.
Yeah, but I think it does help many parents get your kids, let them have some food and then get off to train. It gives you that extra 15 minutes, which is nice. It also means that because of the right now, in a strange way, because there's a 15-minute gap, you've got kids leaving the mat area to go to the changing rooms and adults coming into the changing rooms to change. So it should cut off that, because all the adults will be changed and out of the changing rooms ready to step on the mat at 6:15, and that's when the class will end, so kids can go off of the mat, which is nice. So then Tuesdays, you got LC1 again, but instead of running the advanced class, in the back room that we started last night, in fact, we've got Time Champions, which is fun. Last night we had Eve, who was doing her trial class, and she signed up, and had Sahib, which is son.
2 kids last night.
2 kids. I know for a fact that class is going to pack.
Every time
really
we joke about this. Listen, when we first started, do you remember we had 2 kids on the mat every time? That's all we had. 2 kids. One of them was my son.
Yeah.
So like we had no students, and we just grew it. And when we put the Thursday junior and teens, I think it was on. Then there was no one in it.
Yeah.
Now it's the busiest class.
Gabe, Lakeel, and Rakai.
Yeah. Now it's like the busiest class ever. So I think we will see this program grow. And that's really exciting. It's great for Tiny Champs too.
The feel of it as well was so much different as well, just because Saturday morning there's 25, 30 Tiny Champions on the mat, and there's loads of parents speaking on the benches. It's like it's great buzz and the energy, but it's also a bit can be a bit scary for the champions. So I think there was just a much more calm, relaxed, playful vibe in the class. It was definitely less stressful for me as a coach, and it was a really fun class. So if you are a parent of a Tiny Champion, I'd really recommend to add on that Tuesday class whilst it's available, because it is. That's a good point to make here. All the Mat 2 classes, it's a smaller room, so there'll be less availability. So if you do want the opportunity to train on one of the Mat 2 classes, you need to get on that quick, because there's not going to be 35 spaces in that class. Right. So yeah. Very cool for Tiny Champions, because they have another opportunity to train in the week.
Yep.
LC1 students can continue on training. Then we've got the LC2 Advanced, which we've already talked about. And then you come to the teens. So again, this is the 13 to 15-year-olds, and it'll run alongside Teens Advanced. Now, in years to come, I imagine some of our teens, by the time they're orange belts, green belts, and they're 14 years old, I will likely invite some of them to say, hey, you and your friend can come to a GB2 tonight, something like that.
Yeah.
To help them in their journey, because they would have been training here 8 years, 10 years. They'll want a bit of extra stuff as well. So in years to come, that'll be cool. But for now, you got the teens class, and then the teens advanced, and the live training. So
yeah, it probably sounds, sorry mate to jump in, so it probably sounds a bit strange that when we say, a 13, 14-year-old being invited to an adults class, like, oh yeah, well, surely I'm going to batter a 13-year-old. It's going to be a joke. You won't.
Yeah.
You won't, because we know from jiu-jitsu, size does matter, but it's not the be-all and end-all. And if you've been training for 8 years since you were 3, it's all you've ever known, you are going to be a beast, and you are going to be a handful for any new adult. 100%.
And some of these kids, I don't know what they're feeding. Remember, Elson, he's or Tom Croston, all those kids are absolute giants. So yeah. So those teens can look forward to that, and it'll be nice because they've got that closer age range. So again, some of those bigger teens, that if they have to spar with 11-year-olds, small kid who's not kind of hit their growths, but yeah, it can be tough for them. So
yeah, I've noticed it in football with Orson, my lad who plays at York City. Once you get to under 14s, so that's 13, 14-year-olds, that's when all the growth spurts happen. There's a 2-year period, and the coach has warned us about it, and it was like, yeah, kind of paid lip service to it, but you see it, and they just go massive. And then by the age of 14s, 15s, you've got a better size difference. Age of 16, they're all the same. But there's a massive difference from under 13s to 14s.
Yep.
So this is really important from a developmental point of view, when testosterone's flowing through the veins of a 13-year-old kid, and they're getting bigger, they're getting faster, getting stronger. It's kind of unsafe to have them running up against a 10-year-old, 11-year-old.
Yeah, you have to have a very, which we do, but very responsible, body-aware kid at that point to keep it safe. Right, Wednesday, exactly the same as Monday. So you got LC1, LC2, juniors, all with advanced classes and live training on the back mat. Thursday is the same as Tuesday, apart from the first bit. So we've got the LC2 class at 4 o'clock then, which is, we've just implemented that as well. So that isn't too much news to parents. But what it means is that if you have a kid who is LC2, 7 to 9, you then can go all the way through on a Thursday night until they hit adult classes. Because all that changes is the timing of your class. You don't have to change days at that point, which is kind of structured the same in the other nights.
Yeah.
So for instance, if you've got a tiny champion on a Tuesday, you can then go same time. You go into you turn 5, you go into LC1. You turn 7, you go one class after LC2. And then that stops you then have a break, but you need to change day. But on Thursdays, for instance, your LC2, you go straight down to juniors. You're then straight into teens. So there's
I think it's the same on Monday too. It goes LC1, LC2.
That's right. Yeah, LC1,
juniors.
LC2 juniors. So the split is kind of oftentimes your juniors into your teens. But again, if you know that you are juniors and you can move, you've got lots of times to prepare. You can go to a Thursday or a Friday or a Saturday where it goes juniors. It's straight into teens. So there's lots of opportunities if you're a junior to stay on the same day as well. Mm-hmm. So Thursdays starts 4 o'clock LC2. It's going to have the advanced class. It's going to have the junior class after that, and then the teens class, obviously, with the advanced classes. Fridays, it's going to change a bit too. So, one of the more coming soon will be an LC1 class at 4 o'clock, which is why we've already moved the kids competition team to 4:45 to accommodate for that. The kids competition team will run longer, which will be great because we can get even more of a beasting out of it. So right now that finishes at 5:45, so it runs for an hour. Now it will finish at 6:15, so they get the extra time, which gives us more time to hit some competition strategy and tactics and technique, rather than just having to use it as pretty much an additional live training session just so they can get the rounds in. So that's great for those guys. Now on same Friday, Mat 2, you've got tiny champions running the same time as LC1, which is great because after that we've got the juniors and teens class, which will run alongside the comp team. So pretty much if you're an LC2 student as well, you could go from LC1 into kids competition team, because you can do that at LC2 level. Mm-hmm. And then you can go straight in, if you didn't want to continue in competition team, you've got the juniors class or team class to go into. That's also good for us in terms of our junior leadership program, because it gives us loads of our kids competition team are already part of the JLP, so that they can give us lots of help with the LC1 classes and the tiny champions before their classes start, which is great for the kids, great for us, great for the parents. All right, I'm just going to quickly reset this camera before we move on.
So it's a busy week, isn't it? I mean, that is a packed schedule, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, and thinking about the stuff we were talking about last week on the podcast around if you want to go from doing one class a week to 2 or more classes a week, this massively facilitates that. You can, if you pretty much you have the availability to do 5 or more classes a week. The ones that don't is the teens, who are 4, I believe. But again, if you are an advanced teen, at some point we will say, hey, you've been training since you're 4 years old, you've got the size, how about you train together on that GB2 on Friday night afterwards if you want. Yep. So leads on to Saturdays, which changes a little bit, not massively. You've got tiny champions at 9 a.m. to 9:30. Then you've got LC1. They also have 9:45, which is when it currently is, but they will have the ability to do the advanced class again. You'll then do LC2 as it currently is at 10:30 to 11:15. However, for whatever reason, that tends to be a quiet class, especially compared to our weekday classes. Like LC2 Wednesday might be our busiest class. But for whatever reason, Saturday, because of kids at that age, maybe they've got football all the time, they've got swimming to go to. Saturday morning's obviously busy day for kids' activities. It's quite a quiet class. So we're actually going to have the juniors class in the back room on a Saturday. So we will make most use of our mat space on that day. But again, if you are the parent of a junior and you want to get in, there'll be limited spaces. So make sure you try and reserve your spot when that becomes available. So then we'll go on to the 11:15 to 12 o'clock class, which is currently juniors and teens, but it will be teens. Mm-hmm. Now alongside that will be a second kids competition team class, which I'm really excited about because it gives us lots of opportunities to play around with what we do. Could be that we have one class is very sparring heavy, one class is a bit more techniques and tactics heavy. Could be that right now we do alternating weeks gi, no gi. Could be alternating days gi and no gi. So there's lots of opportunities to play around when you add that second class. Lots of extra ways we can make kids extra tired, having back-to-back days of classes. Because
It's in the back room, so again, numbers will be smaller.
Yeah, so you've got, especially when you're doing competition team, so you need a lot of space when you're doing that kind of intense sparring. So again, if you are someone who wants that, it'll be a bit limited. But that one again will run for an hour, I believe. So it'll be an hour and a half, I believe. I'll put the extra time on there. But yeah, 11:15 all the way to 12:30, so an hour 15. And that will be a weekday of kids' classes. I mean, a week of kids' classes.
I'm exhausted just
listening. So it's hard to imagine the amount of logistics that goes into making this happen, because not only do you need the availability of lead coaches. What if one of these coaches obviously needs to take time off? Who's then going to step in? If the only other lead coach that's available that day is teaching the other class, that creates a problem. As Mike says, we're always aiming for this world class. I don't think we've ever had to really cancel a class here. We've never said class is on. Even when me and you both had COVID, we found a way to.
We've never cancelled.
To run the classes. So we would hate to be like, oh, we've stretched ourselves so much that now someone's had an illness or an injury or whatever, and then now we're like, oh, we've got to cancel this thing because we stretched ourselves too far. So please be patient with the implementation of this. Everything, pretty much as soon as it's decided, will get communicated out to you, and you'll have many months to prepare to, for the unfortunate few that might need to change the day in which they train, we'll have plenty of time to get ready for that. And if it's the case, I think we already talked about this, if it's the case where you need to, phase that into a little bit in your own lives, let's say, for instance, you have a 7-year-old, but they've still got 3 weeks of swimming left, so they can't change to the Wednesday or whatever it is, then that's fine. We can work together to sort that out.
So we've got to we want to implement this in August, which is generally a quieter time for us. You'll know that. We've already communicated this out. We won't be closing. This will be the first summer that we don't close. You'll notice that all our kids' classes are run on bank holidays as well. So that's another commitment to you guys from us to keep that provision going for your kids. So August gives us a bit of a chance to test and learn, right, in the full programme. But what you will find is some of this will be phased in between now and then. So once we decide when we're going to launch, I think we'll probably do it night by night. Yeah. So let's say we're going to pick Thursday. We're going to say, right, we're going to change to the new timetable on a Thursday because we've got the coaches lined up. Then we'll communicate that out and give you a chance to jump in. It's worthwhile just noting as well on the coaches, I'm sure you guys do know, all of our lead coaches are DBS checked, first aid trained, and ICP certified worldwide with Gracie Barha. That's a huge commitment from us to them. Thousands of pounds in investment in our coaches. But you can guarantee that everyone leading a class has been trained to the same standard that we have.
Yeah.
The only thing they don't have is the experience, perhaps, of jiu-jitsu, but you don't need a lot of experience to be an amazing coach.
No, I think in many ways, they bring something else to the table that sometimes we can't. I know for Alex, for instance, just comes in with mega energy. He's the Unreal. Most charismatic guy you'll see on the mats. Sophie obviously has a really good connection with the female students, and they can really look up to her. For Danny, he's got this real mat presence, and I think it was said into the group chat, our coaches group chat, how I think it might have been Tom Patterson said how he's never seen a group of LC1 students just listen so attentively to a new coach just straight away. He can just hold the room really well. So all these new coaches are going to bring their own experience and their own thing, which is great for your kids. Ultimately, I'd never want the kids just to try and copy my jiu-jitsu or copy your jiu-jitsu. They've got to find it for themselves, and having diverse coaches, letting them look at techniques and giving their own experience will help them develop their own jiu-jitsu and their own games, which is perfect, which is what I want for them, which is great. Yeah. So, I look at some of the kids now, and they're doing stuff that I never teach, and I'm like, how do you do that? Keelan and Kai, so creative with their stuff. It's great to see. So that's a look at the new timetables. I hope you're all excited as I am about it. I think it's going to be, just such unchallengeable in what a jiu-jitsu provision is for around here, around the UK, around Europe. It is everything and more like a kid could hope for in terms of their development on the mats.
Yeah, so when we changed the adult schedule timetable at the start of the year, we said that it was the most comprehensive adult schedule of any Gracie bar in the UK, and I think it is. This will be, I've not seen a kids provision like this outside of America, perhaps Australia. So I think we'll have like a Europe continent-wide leading kids provision in terms of offer an opportunity for you to train jiu-jitsu at all levels, all age groups. I think it's phenomenal. I'm really excited about it. What I will say, and look, it's worthwhile us being honest, right? Like, we don't hide anything in this business. It's tough at the moment. Like, business is tough right now for a lot of businesses, not just ours. But for the first time in 3 years, we've really kind of hit a big bump in our ability to grow still. And we're finding that it's becoming increasingly tough, isn't it, to run the business and be profitable, right? And obviously you guys need us to be, because otherwise we're not here. And you need us to be here. We want to be here. So I suppose the reason I mention that is I hope it's a demonstration that even when times are challenging, that we are not reducing our offering. We're looking to invest again. We're looking to do more. And I suppose the only ask I have of anybody out there is that, and we said this last podcast, mate, if you love jiu-jitsu or your child loves jiu-jitsu, tell someone in the playground about it, on the school pickup, and get their kids involved. There's loads of opportunities for new children to come and try this, right? And we need your help to keep growing this place to what it could become.
Yeah, and as you said last week, it's one of the easiest things to offer to someone else because it has such big impact. Like, I think we talked about it a few times on many podcasts ago, but if you never invited me to come do jiu-jitsu, it would have had who knows where my life would be, like many years down the line. So yeah, you never know what great impact you could have.
It's a gift, man. It's a gift. There's so many people like T. There's a guy called Dave who I introduced to jiu-jitsu in my old job. He runs a school in Northern Ireland. Like, people are making a living through jiu-jitsu and loving life. It's a gift you can offer someone. It might be the one thing that elevates that kid's confidence, and then they go thrive in class and elsewhere. So yeah, just be liberal with the way you talk about us if you like what we do, please, and just share it with as many people as you can. Because there's still so many people, even in North Leeds, that don't even know we exist. Yeah. We hear that all the time. Oh, I didn't know there was a jiu-jitsu academy on Street Lane. Like, let's just tell everyone about it.
For sure. Is there anything else we want to talk about or update people around?
No, so I suppose one of the questions I would have if I was a parent was like, is there going to be any price change? We've just changed our prices, we don't envisage any price changes. If you add another class on, of course, you'll then pay that number of classes per week, but there'll be no price change for any of this. Yeah, just more opportunities. And anything roof-wise you want to talk about? Is that ready to... So yeah, we spoke a while back about the potential opportunity to move up into the attic space and create another floor plate. We've invested money again to get that to through architects drawing, structural engineers, and just to get a quote. Yeah, a lot of money as well. And it's not far off £500,000. So it just doesn't make financial sense for us or the landlord to invest because the return rate just doesn't make sense. So that means that we're sticking with what we've got, which is more than adequate. There are places where people train in Brazil and London with just our back mat space. Like, that's all they've got. And they've got 200 people training there. So there's more than enough space. But what you can expect us to do is, now we know we're not going to go upstairs, is to probably invest a little bit more in this space again. We'd like to do something with the gents' changing rooms to make that a little bit nicer. Ladies have got a lovely spot. Gents, not so nice, so we'll change that. And also we're looking at re-roofing the whole thing, which isn't going to be cheap, but it means we stop leaking. Oh yeah. And I think, like,
like we talked about back, and I've mentioned it a few times, the Chatri Sitjongtong, who owns One Championship, which is like the 7th biggest sport property in the world. He was talking about how...
Right on the podcast.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to it if you've not seen that episode.
Amazing guy, and he was saying how he grew Evolve MMA to many thousand students is not necessarily a bigger space, it is using the space you have times the time you have. So look at the adults program we have right now. You've got morning classes, afternoon classes, and multiple evening classes. That's pretty much like as good as you can get, but you know there is obviously space in there. There's not only space in the class right now for more people to come in, which doesn't really impact anything training wise, and there's also, look, you could put on Sunday classes we don't have right now. We've already talked about little thing for the adults now. There's probably going to be a no-gi Thursday class coming on in addition. Like again, no price change for you guys, don't worry. And there's, you know, in the future, maybe we'll have 10 o'clock classes or for after the 9:30 classes for after the school run. So there's loads of ways to still grow within this space. So I'm not concerned about that. I think it's just going to get better and better here.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for I had a look on the founders members wall actually the other day. And I was looking at some pictures from the very first Victor Estima seminar we had, and I was like, oh yeah, like all these guys from it was cool to see how many people are still here from like day one, and the people who had left, a lot of them had left not for bad reasons or anything. It's like, oh, that person gone traveling, or they've moved away, or like whatever it was. It was never with like, oh, they just had a really bad experience, so they've left, which is nice.
Yeah, good. The future's bright, guys. We're still working really hard to make this place as best we can for you. Thank you for all your support. Thanks for being a part of it. And I look forward to seeing you on the mats.
Us.